Xtalks connects professionals in the life science, medical device, and food industries with useful content like webinars, job openings, articles, and virtual meetings to help you succeed in your career. This life science focused podcast brings together some of our editorial staff to share insights into the latest B2B industry news to keep you up to date.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Xtalks Life Science Podcast. I'm Ayesha Rashid, Senior Life Science Journalist at Xtalks.com, and this week I'm joined by Vera Kovacevic. Thanks for coming today. So in this episode, we're going to be marking Rare Disease Day, which is falling on February 29th this year, and that is an extra special day because it is leap year, and what a better way to celebrate and mark Rare Disease Day than on the rarest day of the year. So Rare Disease Day is a global observance, which is held again on the last day of February each year. And the goal of Rare Disease Day is to raise awareness among the general public and decision makers about rare diseases and their impact on patient lives. And so, despite there being different definitions across different countries and regions, a disease is generally classified to be rare if it affects less than 1 in 2,000 people. So, one of the overarching themes of Rare Disease Day for the past couple of years has been sharing your colors, which encourages people to share their rare disease stories and build a global community. And some of the other goals of Rare Disease Day include, of course, increasing awareness about rare diseases, promoting research and development, advocating for policies, supporting patients and their families for easier access to care and support. And of course, as I mentioned, to help foster a global rare disease community and really connect patients, their families, and their friends who are affected by rare diseases. So, Rare Disease Day was founded in 2008. And again, it's significant because while individually uncommon, rare diseases collectively affect millions of people worldwide. And in many cases, rare diseases are severe, chronic, and can be life-threatening. And because they're so rare, the conditions often result in challenges such as delayed diagnosis, a lack of medical expertise, a lack of understanding of the disease, and very few treatment options in many cases. So for Rare Disease Day 2024, the campaign actually is led by an organization, so you can check them out at rarediseaseday.org. And this organization really is fantastic because they have a lot of materials that you can share on social media. So they're ready to go. Little infographics that you can share on Instagram or on other platforms. And so this year they also actually put out a video, and I think they do videos almost every year. And in that video, they brought together people from around the world to share their stories, their goals, and their dreams, essentially, and just showing how people living with rare diseases are like you and I and have the very same dreams and goals, but they just have some added challenges. And it's really beautiful to see. So the campaign really provides an opportunity for people from the global and diverse community of over 300 million people living with a rare disease and their families to share their stories and raise awareness about rare diseases. So the submissions in the video span from countries and from Bahrain to India to Argentina, so across the globe, embodying the diverse experiences of the global rare disease community. And the video is available in more than 60 languages and it's been shared worldwide by the 72 National Alliance Patient Organization Partners of Rare Disease Day. And again, the video really stands as a testament to the diverse global community of rare disease patients and their families. So I wanted to highlight some, in addition to the wonderful patient stories, also some facts and statistics about rare diseases. And as I mentioned, although individually they're uncommon, but globally, 300 million people are living with a rare disease. So that is very significant. And that's why this day is very significant. And so that amounts to about 5% of the world's population being affected by a rare disease. Now, there are over 6,000 rare diseases that have been identified so far. And 72% of all rare diseases are genetic in nature. And so that's why in recent times, we've been seeing a lot of genetic-based therapies receiving FDA approvals for various rare diseases. And so I think we've come a long way in terms of treatments, which we'll talk about a bit later in this episode. And 70% of genetic rare diseases appear in childhood. And if we look on the oncology side, there are about 200 rare cancers. And so 1 in 5 cancers is rare, and the incidence for rare cancers is less than 6 individuals per 100,000 a year. So again, there are various types of rare diseases falling into different categories. And in cancer, you have quite a few of them. So, as I mentioned, in terms of how you can participate in Rare Disease Day and to really help raise awareness about rare diseases on this special day, there are a number of different ways. And as I mentioned, the social media campaigns. So, you can share information, stories, and posts related to Rare Disease Day using specific hashtags to increase visibility. So, namely, hashtag Rare Disease Day. And rarediseaseday.org, as I mentioned, has resources and material that can be readily shared on different social media platforms. Attending educational events or organizing events yourself, like webinars, workshops, and conferences to educate and share the latest research and policy developments is also a fantastic way to get involved actively and to really help raise awareness about rare diseases and the importance of shining a light on them. Fundraising is another important aspect. And of course, as we all know, research and development is very expensive. And so raising money to help to help go towards the development and research into new treatments is very important. And then also towards organizations that support patients and their caregivers in various ways, let's say to help them get to clinical trials and just to provide support and education is really important. And so the fundraising behind that is very, very, very important. And I think a poster child that comes to mind is ALS. So several years ago, I'm sure everybody heard about the Ice Bucket Challenge. And so that raised a lot of money for the cause. And we spoke to actually a company, Alnilim, I believe, and how they said that they actually got FDA approval for a drug called Relyvrio for the treatment of ALS. And they said how that initiative really helped them to bring this drug forward, and because funds from that went to the research and development of the drug. So we were able to really see how fundraising and public fundraising and initiatives like that translated into a treatment for patients, which is so awesome to see. And then, of course, advocacy, engaging with policymakers and stakeholders to advocate for the needs of the rare disease community is also crucial. So continued innovation, collaboration, and advocacy are essential to advancing research and improving outcomes for the rare disease community. So Rare Disease Day has not only served as a platform for raising awareness and giving rare disease patients a voice, but it's also been a catalyst for action. So moving forward, really the collective resolve and collaboration of the global rare disease community will be important in overcoming the challenges ahead. And so really this movement and the celebration celebrates people with rare diseases, shines a light on their stories, and really ensures that patients and people affected by a rare disease receive the recognition, support, and care that they deserve. Just wanted to get your thoughts on Rare Disease Day, Vera.
Yeah, I think it's such an important awareness day. And I think every year I feel like it's getting more and more recognition just because on social media and all the hashtags that are being used, and people, like you said, share their stories. So I think that's great. I also think social media is such a powerful platform for rare disease patients because they can connect with each other, they can form groups on social media, which I know that they do. And if anything like that can help them with their own health journey, and they can feel like they're not alone with this disease, right? Because I think when it comes to rare diseases, like you mentioned, like these patients have way more obstacles and challenges than patients with a common disease, like if we're talking about on average, right? And like you mentioned, that's just because, like, well, first of all, there's that whole delayed diagnosis part, right? Because the time for a rare disease patient to actually get their accurate diagnosis, that can take years, right? They may have to go to like multiple healthcare providers. They have to do various different tests. They often maybe get a misdiagnosis too. And so, because their condition is so rare, many healthcare professionals may have never even encountered them. And so the healthcare professionals may lack awareness and recognition of these symptoms. So then the patient, by the time they actually get their correct diagnosis, just a lot of time passes. And during that time, it was hard for them to like actually treat their condition. And like you said, there are, in addition to the delayed diagnosis and just the inadequate medical expertise, there's like also a lot of limited treatment options for them, right? So for the vast majority of rare diseases, there's no actual like FDA approved therapy that was developed for that rare disease in mind, right? It was only really with the start of the FDA Orphan Drug Act that pharma companies actually started to have an incentive to develop drugs for rare diseases. Because before, what they would do is, even if they saw that one of their drugs may potentially help a rare disease, they would just put it on the shelf for later, because these big pharma companies, they were more interested in making these blockbuster drugs for the more common diseases, right? Like diabetes or cardiovascular diseases and so on. So now with the FDA's Orphan Drug Act, which you're going to talk more about, I'm sure. Now there's just more incentive for pharma companies to develop drugs specifically for a rare disease. Like that drug underwent the entire process from discovery to preclinical to clinical development for that rare disease in mind, which is actually quite an amazing thing. And that really wasn't ever happening even 40 years ago. So I think that's such a great advancement. And I think many rare disease patients have a lot to look forward to, hopefully, in the next 5 to 10 years.
Totally agree. I think we've seen significant changes in the rare disease landscape in just the last even 1 or 2 decades, because even though the Orphan Drug Act came into effect in 1983, there wasn't a whole lot of research and development in this space. And I think there are a number of factors which, I'll talk about in the next segment, but I think like awareness campaigns like this and patient advocacy has also been huge in really fostering the development of new treatments. And I've spoken to a number of drug makers, researchers, patient advocates in this space over the past couple of years, as being a journalist here. And it's one of the common themes has been advocacy and bringing together various stakeholders. So you have the Orphan Drug Act, which is great, but to really put that into action, you had to bring to the table patients, researchers, drug companies, drug makers. And I think the push there by patient advocacy groups has been tremendous. And again, advocacy through campaigns like this, like Rare Disease Day. So I think it's been really great to see the evolving landscape. And yeah, exactly, you're right. To have incentives under things like the Orphan Drug Act is huge. And I'm certain and very hopeful and excited to see the space evolving for rare disease treatments and really getting treatments out to patients, because I think they've been sort of forgotten for a long, long time. And I think it's so heartwarming and so wonderful to see a spotlight and awareness campaigns like this dedicated to them. All right, that was a great conversation to segue into the next segment and to talk about new rare disease drugs and research advancements. And so, as we were talking about in the last segment there, that there have been significant advancements in new rare disease drugs, thanks to things like the Orphan Drug Act and increased advocacy that have brought stakeholders to the table. And so there's been a real push to develop therapies for rare diseases. And particularly, there have been a lot of advancements for genetic disorders, which can be treated, of course, by gene therapies that correct, replace, or silence defective genes. And technologies like CRISPR-Cas9 have really revolutionized the potential for things like gene editing, which can offer hope for curative treatments for a lot of genetic conditions that, things like Duchenne muscular dystrophy, DMD, and certain types of inherited blindness, and so many other different genetic-based diseases. So if we take a look at rare disease drug approvals, the FDA has been approving quite a number since about 2020. So if we take a look at that year, 31 out of 53 novel drug approvals were for rare or orphan diseases. And the focus on this continues with 20 out of 37 novel drug approvals having been targeted towards rare diseases in 2022 and around 24 to 25 out of 55 in 2023. All right, so I wanted to share and talk about some of the notable drug approvals in the rare disease space that we've covered here on Xtalks over the last couple of years. And so I think in 2023, one of the most notable approvals was for a drug called Filspari for primary immunoglobulin A nephropathy, or IgAN, which is a rare kidney disease. And so this was the first non-immunosuppressive therapy approved for the condition. And so the drug works by blocking both endothelin and angiotensin receptors, offering a new treatment option beyond ACE inhibitors and angiotensin receptor blockers. So again, this was a very significant approval for this disease. And then also in 2023, we saw the approval of Skyclarys for the treatment of adult and pediatric patients with Friedreich's ataxia, which is a rare neurological disease. And so this drug was developed by Reata Pharmaceuticals, which was acquired by Biogen later that year. And Skyclarys is the first and only treatment for this condition. It's an ultra rare neuromuscular condition which causes damage to the nervous system to affect movement. And then taking a look at some genetic-based therapies, some gene therapies that were approved in the last couple of years. As I mentioned, again, we've been seeing kind of an explosion comparatively to the past in terms of seeing gene therapies reaching, FDA approvals. So two of the most significant ones, actually, to round out 2023 were Casgevy and Lyfgenia. So these were the very first gene therapies to be approved by the FDA for the treatment of sickle cell disease. So both therapies were awarded their approvals on actually the same day in December 2023. So Casgevy is developed by Vertex Pharmaceuticals and CRISPR Therapeutics, and it also became the very first CRISPR-Cas9 based therapy approved in the US. So it's the very first CRISPR therapy with FDA approval. And then you have Lyfgenia, which is developed by Bluebird Bio, which is a lentiviral-based gene therapy, which, like Casgevy, is designed to increase levels of functional hemoglobin in red blood cells, which are compromised in sickle cell disease. So those two therapies being awarded FDA approvals on the same day, that was really awesome to see. And Bluebird Bio is a big name in the gene therapy space. It's proud. It says that it's proud to be a leader in that space. And so the company won approvals for two other gene therapies in 2022, and so that was very significant for Bluebird. One of them was Skysona for the treatment of the rare neurological disorder, cerebral adrenoleukodystrophy, or CALD, and Zynteglo for beta thalassemia. And then a very notable approval for Duchenne muscular dystrophy. The very first gene therapy approved for it is called Elevidys, and it remains the only one for the disease. It's developed by Sarepta Therapeutics, and it's approved actually for children 4 to 5 years of age with DMD who have a confirmed mutation in the dystrophin gene. So in terms of its clinical trial data for other age groups, that wasn't very clear at the time of approval. So Sarepta says that it hopes to clarify Elevidys's effectiveness in older children in a confirmatory trial that it is currently conducting. So as we know, gene therapies are not cheap. So they often come with price tags that are in the range of a couple of $1 million. And so, but gene therapy makers say that they are working to ensure that patients are able to access the treatments through patient assistance programs that are developed in conjunction with the support of governments. So while we've seen, again, a lot of significant, exciting new gene therapies and just therapies in general for rare diseases in the space, the field continues to advance. So rare disease clinical research, there's been a lot of, a big spotlight on the field, and testament to that is the number of rare disease research clinical trial webinars that we have here on Xtalks that we've seen in the last couple of years, and also being able to speak to a number of researchers and leaders in the field. So the field is definitely growing, which is great to see. And as we mentioned and talked about, I think rare disease research and drug development was really kind of kicked off with the Orphan Drug Act in 1983. And although that was a long time ago, I think the impacts of that are now really being seen now. So a number of countries have implemented Orphan Drug Acts to incentivize the development of treatments for rare diseases. And so these regulations often offer benefits such as tax credits, grant funding, and extended market exclusivity for approved drugs. Another theme or advancement that we're seeing in the rare disease clinical research space is the push towards adopting more innovative trial designs. So as we know, there are a number of challenges in rare disease clinical trials, including having small patient populations, which can really limit the power of trials and studies, of course. And so researchers are attempting to address these kinds of challenges by using more innovative trial designs, such as basket trials, N of 1 trials, and adaptive designs. And these approaches can allow for more flexible and efficient studies across multiple rare diseases or subtypes within a single trial. And again, this can accelerate the development process and help reduce costs and to really garner more powerful data from trials. Patient-centric approaches, there's been a growing emphasis on them, including things like patient-reported outcomes and engagement with patient advocacy groups in trial design and execution as well. So these approaches really help ensure that trials are really inclusive of the patient and their caregivers. So to really involve them in the trial design process right from the very beginning has been a common theme and something that we've been hearing a lot in the rare disease clinical trial space, that you can't just have your patients as bystanders in the trials. They have to be active participants, and that's how you're really going to get significant results and significant, rich data, and also developing therapies that are really tailored to patients and their disease. So that's been a very, very important theme in this space. And again, these approaches help to ensure that trials address the needs and concerns of the rare disease community. So tools like patient-reported outcome measures are being used more frequently to assess the impact of treatments from the patient's perspective. Advancements in technologies, of course, we've seen an explosion of not just the advent of genomic tools, biomarkers, but now really the application of them. So we're going from concept theory to actual application, which has been very exciting to see. So the use of genomics, biomarkers, digital health technologies, and now technologies like AI and machine learning are really helping to improve the identification of potential participants in trials, for example, and also enabling more precise and personalized treatment approaches. So right from helping to better design trials, to better enrollment with things like AI and machine learning, through to really getting those drugs. And also, actually, I was speaking to somebody the other day about the use of AI in drug development and how you can use AI machine learning algorithms to predict drug combinations before you even take them to trials and to see it. So I thought that was very cool and a very powerful approach. So it's very exciting to see a lot of these technologies being applied in the space. International collaboration is another big theme. So collaboration between, as I mentioned, pharmaceutical companies, academic institutions, patient advocacy groups has become an essential driver in rare disease research in recent years. And so global networks and consortia are facilitating collaboration across countries and disciplines, pooling resources, sharing data to overcome the challenges of rare disease research. Public-private partnerships are also playing an important role in advancing research and development. And an example of this is the International Rare Diseases Research Consortium, which is dedicated to addressing rare diseases through research. And really, their goal is to help people living with a rare disease to receive an accurate diagnosis, care, and available therapy within 1 year of coming to medical attention. So Vera, as you mentioned, often delayed diagnosis is such a big problem. And so it's great to see groups like this that are not just focused on drug development, but the entire life cycle and the entire journey of a rare disease patient, right from diagnosis through to finding the appropriate treatments for them. Regulatory innovations, of course, agencies, as we talked about, like the FDA, and then in Europe, the European Medicines Agency, not only in addition to their orphan drug acts, they actually have additional pathways and are increasingly offering guidance and support for rare disease drug development. Things like fast track and breakthrough therapy designations, which can expedite the review and approval process. They also offer guidance on clinical trial design and regulatory pathways to accelerate the approval of orphan drugs. And so what we hear in this space is that it's important to engage with these regulatory agencies early. The earlier, the better, because they can help assist you in so many aspects, right from, as I mentioned, trial design through to, any issues or obstacles that you might face in trials later down the line. So and also expectations. Often guidelines and things at these regulatory agencies are changing very quickly. So it's important to be on top of the changing regulations. And so if you're interacting and communicating with regulatory agencies early and throughout the drug development, the trial processes, that is really going to help in a more efficient overall drug development process. So there are also government programs dedicated to rare disease research, such as the Accelerating Medicines Partnership Bespoke Gene Therapy Consortium. So this is a gene therapy dedicated consortium, but which is a part of the Foundation for the National Institutes of Health, or the FNIH. But they also have an arm that is dedicated to rare diseases. So they recently announced 8 rare diseases that they selected for its clinical trial portfolio. And digital health and real world evidence. So, of course, digital health technologies are exploding in healthcare, in drug development. So these, things like wearable devices, mobile health apps are being increasingly used to monitor patients in real time, providing valuable data on disease progression, treatment effects, and also being used in clinical trials as well. So that's an important trend that we're seeing. And so despite, all of these advances, there of course continue to be many challenges in rare disease research. And some of these challenges include, like I mentioned, small patient populations, which make it difficult to conduct large scale trials. And so it becomes then important to have multi-center trials that span multiple different countries. And so bringing together all of those facets and bringing together different trial centers and ensuring consistency. And so all of those things become a factor. Limiting understanding of the disease, as we talked about, limited data, regulatory complexities and hurdles, funding and resource limitations, as well as ethical and logistical considerations, such as the use around placebos in small populations with serious or life-threatening conditions. But, I personally, having covered a lot of rare diseases in the past couple of years in terms of rare disease research and the drug development space, I'm very excited to see the landscape of rare disease drug development, which is evolving very quickly. And, themes like precision medicine, patient-centric approaches, and innovative regulatory and research strategies, you really see their application in rare disease research. And the fruitfulness of these adoption of these strategies. So I think it's really, really cool to see. And these developments will continue to bring new treatments to patients, hopefully more quickly and efficiently than ever before, offering hope to those with conditions that were once considered untreatable. That's the end of this episode of the Xtalks Life Science Podcast. If you liked today's show, don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe. Thanks, everyone, and see you next week. Bye for now.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to the Xtalks Life Science Podcast. If you enjoyed our discussions today, please share the episode with your friends and colleagues, and be sure to subscribe in order to be notified when a new episode is released. To join in on the discussion, you can find Xtalks on social media. Email podcast@xtalks.com or comment on the articles directly. Links are in the show description. Take a moment to join our community at xtalks.com to get access to everything we have to offer, including webinars, job listings, virtual meetings, articles, and more. The views and opinions expressed in the podcast are those of the speakers sharing them. They should not be taken as professional advice and do not necessarily reflect the policy or position Honeycomb Worldwide. For further information, email us at podcast@xtalks.com. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next week.